Most stories begin with once upon a time. Claire's began with cloth, not a veil for a bride, not a ribbon for a child, a mask stitched from moonsilver silk and lined with ash gray thread that pricked her skin like 1,000 quiet needles. She chose it when she was 12 and never laid it aside. 10 winters came and went, and still the mask stayed, a second face laced to the first, a door locked over her bones. By day she moved like a shadow along the back corridors of Grayfang Keep, where the hearth smoke clung low and the stone floors kept secrets. She mended banners no one bothered to salute, counted jars in the apothecary by touch, carried ledgers to the steward with hands that never shook. Servants learned not to look at her. Nobles, when they came to hunt the forests or clatter through the halls, saw only their reflections in the cold polish of her mask and mistook that for a face. If they whispered at all, they called her the silken wraith. If they guessed at all, they guessed wrong. Curse, fire, fever, punishment, penitence. They tried the words on like cloaks. None fit. Only one truth fit, and Claire wrapped it tighter than the laces behind her head. The mask kept the curse from blooming. The mask kept others safe. The mask kept her from being seen, truly seen, by the one person who must never see her. At least, that was what she told herself. The year the Alpha came, the snow held on longer than it should have, clinging to the ridgelines like old grief. Scouts had said he wouldn't arrive until the thaw fully broke. William came early anyway, riding the cliff road with 6 of his guard and a standard that snapped like thunder in the wind. Word flew fast and foolish ahead of him. He could scent lies. He could bend men's knees with a breath. He could call the wolves down from the high country with a single note from his throat. Claire heard all of it from the dark-paneled ledger room, where she was indexing tithe lists from the villages she had never walked. She meant to stay there when the great bell tolled to announce his entry. She meant to keep her eyes on ink and her fingers on parchment and her breath steady in her ribs. She did not. The courtyard was a stone bowl filling with people, and she slipped into its rim like a drop of water no one noticed. The guards peeled away. The horses stamped steam into the brittle light. William dismounted without looking at the steps, as if the ground knew to rise to meet him. He wore no crown. He had no need. There was Alpha written in the angle of his shoulders, and the way the noise fell away around him without being asked. Claire felt the change in the air before she understood it. It was not the hush of awe. She'd heard that once for a traveling prince with more gems than spine. It was a pressure shift, low and sure, the way a storm announces itself to the skin. Her scarred cheek, hidden, tingled as if old coals stirred. The mask warmed faintly. She stepped back. Her heel met stone. The crowd pressed. The steward bowed so low his forehead almost brushed the flags, and the Alpha passed him by with a nod that did not break the quiet. William's gaze swept the gathering, not hungrily, not hunting, simply taking stock like a man who had learned that order was a kindness. When he turned his head toward the bench of servants and scribes where Claire stood, she learned a new meaning for the word seen. It was not the quick cut of a noble's curiosity, not the sting of pity, not the slow strip of disdain. It was a warmth on the skin, an answer to a question she hadn't dared to ask, a weight that felt less like judgment and more like a door unlocking in a house she hadn't known she lived in. He frowned almost imperceptibly. She felt, absurdly, that he had smelled smoke and could not find the fire. Then someone stepped in front of her, a kitchen maid with a basket of winter turnips, and the look broke. Claire took the chance to vanish. She knew the back stairs better than her own pulse. She went down, not up, sliding past the laundry where steam made ghosts of everyone, past the store cellars where the air tasted like iron and apples. Only when she reached the kennel passage did she allow her breath to shudder. A wolfhound thumped its tail once, twice, not alarmed, recognizing her, and put its head back on its paws.
It's nothing,
Claire told the dog, out loud, because lying to one's own bones is easier in company.
it's nothing. It means nothing.
The dog sighed, unconvinced. That night, the keep threw a feast as if joy could be kindled on command. Tallow candles softened even the cruelties carved into the high seat, and the old tapestries drank the light without giving any back. Claire poured wine and made herself smaller than the smoke. William sat at the center of the high board, not drinking much and not smiling either. When men are feared, people mistake quiet for coldness. She had learned that fear makes poor translators. He looked down the table once, and Claire's throat forgot how to swallow.
The mask.
She told herself.
It's the mask. Whatever the bond knows, it can't find its way through silver and ash. The runes sewn where the lining met the silk were not for beauty. The knots she tied every morning were not to keep the mask on, they were to keep the world out. She'd bought the spell threads in a market where names were more expensive than gold, and the woman who sold them had said, eyes like black oil, that the stitches would blur sense, confuse moons, muddy destiny. They had worked for 10 years. They would keep working now.
On the fourth tray, her hand shook. It was only a tremor, so slight a lord's son might never have noticed. William did. His gaze flicked once and stilled. The tremor stopped, as if the air itself had steadied around her. She set the tray down and stepped back and did not breathe until a minstrel's bow snapped a string and everyone looked away. When the hall began to empty, when the servants drifted back to their understair worlds and the last hounds curled up under the last benches, Claire followed her route like a prayer she'd said too many times to forget. Turn by the broken shield. Count 7 stones. Right where the draft smells of lavender and cold. The ledger room was waiting for her with the kind of peace that doesn't ask questions. She did not get there.
Stop,
A voice said, not loud. It had the tone of a command given 1,000 times before, and the patience not to repeat itself. The Alpha stood at the crook of the corridor, one palm on the rough wall. His eyes were gray in this light, not winter gray that bites, but river gray that looks calm until you see the current below.
I won't take much of your time, he said, but I need your name.
She lowered her head.
Claire, my lord.
The sound that came out surprised her. She didn't speak to nobles. She didn't speak much. The mask made words sound like they came from down a well.
Claire.
He tried it on his tongue as if names were things that could be tested for truth.
You've served here long?
All my life,
she said. And that much was true, though the borders of all and life were not what most people meant by the phrase. His gaze did not move to the mask. That was worse. Most men grew curious and couldn't help but stare. Curiosity is toothless, and she knew how to starve it. William looked at her hands, at the place on her apron where wine had dried to rust, at her posture. He was cataloging without cruelty.
When you entered the hall, he said lightly, almost as if the conversation were about weather. The room changed.
I'll be more careful, she said, pulse uneven. I didn't mean...
That wasn't rebuke.
Something like humor touched his mouth and vanished.
That was me asking whether you felt it too.
The old instinct rose. Deny everything. Be smoke. But the scar under the mask warmed, and the mask warmed with it, and a hot rope of fear pulled tight. She inclined her head the smallest fraction. Not yes, not number. William's voice gentled.
There are wards woven into that mask.
She said nothing.
Wards confuse things that ought to be clear.
A beat.
Sometimes they protect, sometimes they imprison.
Claire's fingers clenched in her skirts.
It's not hurting you, she said. So it has done its job.
He was quiet long enough that she heard, distantly, the high bell strike the hour.
And what is the job you gave it, Claire?
To keep me from being seen,
she said, and felt the truth of it pull like a stitch drawn too tight. Then, lower,
To keep me from seeing.
he made a small, rueful sound, almost a laugh.
I don't think it's doing as well as you hoped.
He took a step closer, and the current under the river ran faster. Claire didn't move. Alpha Command could crack a spine from across a room if it wanted. He didn't use it. He only looked at her as if the world were a map and she a landmark he couldn't chart until he had the right word for it.
Remove it, he said softly.
Heat rippled up her throat. The laces at the back of her head seemed to grow thorns. The runes along the hem of the mask hummed, high and warning. Her scars, she never named them aloud, never gave them more shape than necessary, flared in sympathy and then in pain, the way old injuries riot when a storm approaches.
I can't.
She said, "Please." His jaw worked once. She couldn't tell if the tightness she heard in his breath was disappointment or self-rebuke.
I won't force you. Not like this.
Something in her didn't know what to do with a promise spoken that quickly. She'd expected anger, expected the clipped words of men accustomed to being obeyed. Instead, he took another half step back, as if giving ground were a show of strength.
Tomorrow, William said. I want you in the Eastern Chapel when the sun clears the ridge. It's quiet there. We'll talk.
We'll talk. As if conversation were a door through which two people could walk and meet unarmed, Claire dipped the smallest of bows. When she reached the ledger room, she shut the door and slid down the panel until she sat on the floor, palms on the cold stone. The mask had cooled again. The scars beneath it still throbbed like a second heartbeat that hadn't learned to pace itself.
It's fine.
She told herself.
He can't see through ash thread and old magic. He can't scent you through wolfsbane knots. He can't reach you.
The whisper that answered came from inside her own ribs and did not sound like comfort. Not yet. Sleep did not come for her so much as circle warily and finally settle at the foot of her bed like a hound who expected to be woken. When it broke all at once, with a rush of remembered air, with the scent of pine and something warmer, with the feeling, so old she had taught her body to ignore it, that she was falling and would keep falling until she hit the night all over again. She rose before dawn. She didn't light a lamp. Lamps make lies unnecessary. She walked the empty corridors to the Eastern Chapel, a small stone fold built into the keep's side where winter sun found the colored glass and made cold saints look almost kind. William was already there. Of course he was. Alphas are suns around which the day arranges itself. He stood near the far window, hands behind his back, shoulders relaxed in a way that told her relaxation was a learned language for him. He looked at the glass, not at her.
Thank you for coming,
he said.
I thought it wasn't a command.
It wasn't.
A beat.
When you've been handed power all your life, it takes practice to learn how not to use it.
He turned then, and his gaze found her face with the steadiness of a lodestone. He stopped a yard away. The chapel made even his voice sound smaller, but only by comparison to silence.
Whatever that mask is hiding, William said, it is not something that makes you less. I can feel that without seeing.
Claire swallowed. The scars ached.
You say that as if you know me.
I don't. That's why I asked you here.
He hesitated, as if deciding how much to give a stranger, and then chose honesty the way a man chooses a weapon he trusts.
Since I was a boy, I've been told I would know my mate by scent, by the way the world goes sharp as a blade when she enters a room. Yesterday the world went sharp, and yet there was a wall where there ought to be a door.
The words landed with the accuracy of arrows loosed by a patient hunter. Claire did not flinch. She had learned to hold still while things that could kill you passed by.
I have no wish to chase you,
he said.
But I can't ignore the thing that rose in me when you came into that hall. I won't lie to you. It's not in me to pretend. So I will say this clean. I want to see your face.
Her breath came thin.
And if I refuse?
Then I will go on as I must. I will keep my people fed. I will lead. I will not unmake your choice with a command. But I will not stop knowing that I am missing the truth of something I was born to find.
Truth. Born. Find. Words that tasted like hunger and promise at once. The chapel's light shifted. Color slid across his cheek like a blessing that didn't know where to land. Claire lifted her hands to the laces and felt the first spark crackle along the runes. The old magic woke as if it had been listening for its name. Her scars blazed in answer.
No, she said, harsher than she meant. Not yet.
He closed his eyes for the space of one steady breath. When he opened them, they were darker, as if the river had deepened.
Then tell me what stands between us. If I can't ask that, what use is all this power I never asked for?
She surprised herself by telling him the truth, or enough of it to be dangerous.
10 years ago, Claire said. Someone loved me only until it became costly. He sold what he couldn't carry to a witch who never paid in coin. The curse is the price of being left. It went to my face because that was the part of me the world looked at first. The mask keeps it sleeping. It keeps me usable.
He took the words in like a man cataloging injuries he intended to heal if allowed. Names,
He said quietly.
You can't have them.
she said.
They cut when you say them.
A flicker of wolf moved through him then, quick and gone, a shadow of the beast under the skin. Not anger at her, not even at the unknown witch. Anger at the shape of a world where a girl would learn to describe her own survival as a utility.
Very well.
William said.
No names,
He looked at the glass again, then back to her.
but a pledge. I won't use force. And a request. Let me put my hand here.
He touched the air, inches from her mask, not making contact.
No more. I want to know whether the wall is all wards, or if part of it is fear.
Claire stood very still. The instinct to flee clawed at her ribs. But the chapel had a way of making people honest. She nodded. He lifted his hand until the warmth of it found the cold of the mask. He did not touch. The runes brightened under the edge of sight, the way heat makes air shimmer. Her scars burned. A thin thread of power, not his and not hers, sang in the space between skin and silk. Under the mask, something answered. It had the shape of a door unlatching. It had the taste of iron and salt. It had the sound of a promise spoken long ago to a girl who hadn't learned yet what broken meant. William's mouth set, as if absorbing pain not his own. He lowered his hand.
It's not only the ward.
He said.
It's the ward, and what it taught you to expect.
She had no words left that weren't a howl. She swallowed them.
We're done, she said, and hated how much it looked like retreat.
We're done, he agreed, and did not follow her when she turned and walked out into the bleached light of a winter morning that did not care what vows were made within stone.
Outside, the wind cut clean. Claire's fingers shook when she tied the laces harder, till they bit. She had been selfish to come. She had been foolish to stand in a room with a man whose voice turned the air to truth. She had been a child to imagine that the bond could be outrun by ash thread and old spells. The forest answered none of that. It only lifted its dark head and listened. That night, the keep slept hard. It always does after a day that turns the blood. William posted double guards on the north wall anyway. Wolves are not the only things that move in late winter. In the hour before dawn, when even stones dream, a woman with a lantern walked the cliff road to the side gate and spoke a word too soft for humans and too clear for anything that had ever been a bird. The steel song wards on the gate sighed, the latch lifted. The woman smiled, slow and patient, and stepped in. She smelled like dried nettle and smoke and coin. She carried, in the lantern's other hand, a mask of her own, polished bone, carved with thin river lines, the kind of thing a storyteller wears when she wants a tale to go the way she wants. She did not hurry. She had waited 10 years. She could wait 1 hour more. Chapter 2. The Witch on the Road. They called her Mireia of the Barrow Hills, when they gave her a name at all.
She called herself the Collector, because that was what she did. Of debts, of stories, of faces.
William had the Eastern Patrol lined up in the courtyard when the alarm came. A ward had breathed where it should have bitten. He sent the first detail to the side gate, and the second to the kennels. The third he kept with him, because if a wolf is to lead, he must know when to go where he is most needed. He went to the chapel. The door stood ajar by no more than an inch, and from within came the faintest flick of lantern light, the kind that is more suggestion than flame. William stepped through. Mireia did not look surprised to see him. She placed her lantern on the low altar, as if making an offering, and turned her bone mask between clever fingers. He could smell iron filings and blood nostalgic with age.
Alpha,
She said brightly, as if greeting a market acquaintance.
Forgive the hour. I prefer to be early, and I prefer not to be seen.
You failed on the second count,
William said even.
and will shortly be disappointed on the first.
The witch's grin widened.
Oh, I think not.
He did not lunge for her throat. Stories breed foolishness, and the quickest way to die is to act as if an old tale will end the way it always has. Instead, he took in details the way Claire had counted jars. The scuff on Mireia's left boot that said she favored that foot when she stepped. The fine dust on her cuff, chalk, not flour. The river lines carved in the bone mask, which were not rivers at all when you traced them close, but sigils for binding and release.
What debt brings you to my keep?
He asked.
Debt?
She laughed.
Number collections.
She lifted the bone mask and held it up to the light.
10 years ago, I sold a girl a face to wear over her own. Clever thing. Blurred scent, muddied fate, kept her safe while the world forgot how to look for what mattered. But all wards accrue interest. Today, I have come for payment.
William did not let his breath change.
You will take nothing from this place.
Oh, Alpha, you lead wolves. You know better than to say never.
Mireia tucked the bone mask under her arm and drifted closer to a window, as if she could bathe in pale color.
The girl is stealing from me with every dawn. I only require what is mine.
What is that exactly?
The moment.
The witch said, and her voice, for the first time, implied teeth.
The instant when a face comes free and the world looks. That flash of terror, of recognition, of birth again. A collector cannot let such a bright coin slip by. There's so little worth taking in winter.
His wolf rose, slow and terrible, filling his bones like a tide. He didn't fight it. He gave it a name and a chair and told it to wait.
You won't touch her,
William said.
I already have.
Mireia tilted her head, bird-like.
10 years ago. Because a boy sold me the right to do so, and men do love to sell what is not theirs. Don't scowl, Alpha. Your kind has no monopoly on the sin. I've seen mothers sell sons' names and kings sell their country's firstborn dawns. All are very dignified about it.
Who was the boy?
She clicked her tongue. Tsk. You, of all men, should know names cut. But since you ask, he was very fair, very earnest. He loved her the way one loves the spring, believing it will stay if you look at it tenderly enough. Then winter spoke, and he found a new season to praise. He made the trade like a gentleman, though, eyes open, his heart only half screaming.
William tasted iron. In that moment, his restraint took the shape of a promise he wrote cold in his belly. When Claire gave him permission, and not before, he would hunt that old story to bone and make it answer for itself. The chapel door creaked. Claire stood there, breath hitching under the mask as if she had run. Her gaze took in the witch, the alpha, the lantern, the bone mask, a geography lesson one step from disaster.
Good morning,
Mireya sang.
I came to watch you choose.
No.
Claire said.
Sweetling, everything is a choice. Even the things we pretend aren't.
The witch's tone went almost kind.
You've held on beautifully. 10 years is a feat, but spells like the one you wear teach the body a lie it can't live by. That love will not know you unless you hide. How did that taste? 10 winters of it?
Claire's fingers lifted to the laces without her permission and stopped there. William saw the tremor. Small, stubborn, brave. He took a breath that did not shake and placed himself half a pace closer to her than to the witch.
This isn't your stage,
He told Mireya.
You don't get to write the scene.
Alpha,
Mireya sighed.
you mistake me for an author. I am only an audience with excellent seats.
Claire swallowed.
What do you want for leaving?
Leaving?
Mireya feigned shock.
I will leave. I always leave. I keep nothing. I only collect the moment.
She raised the bone mask so the lantern's flame shone through the eye holes.
Let it be now. Let it be clean. Take off the pretty lie. Give me the first breath of the truth. I swear by the oldest water I will not touch a hair on your head.
Old water. Not nothing. Old vows have teeth. And if you know how to read them, they can be trusted more than men. William did not look at Claire. He knew the weight a gaze can add.
He said very softly, as if handing her a tool. You owe her nothing. You owe yourself everything.
Claire's pulse beat high in her throat. The runes along her jaw thrummed in reply. 10 years is a long time to carry anything. Longer to carry a face that is not your own. She was suddenly very tired. Her fingers found the knot. It bit. The mask heated until her vision blurred with pinpricks of light. The scars beneath it burst into wicked bloom, old vines thrusting through stone, eager for air.
Wait,
William said. Not a command, a plea for one heartbeat only.
do it for you, not for her.
Claire closed her eyes and felt, through the roar of her own blood, the quiet underneath it. Not the quiet of fear, the quiet of choosing the next breath. She loosened the knot. The first lace slipped. Heat flared. Mireya took in an eager breath, the way a thief inhales when a lock clicks. The second lace came free. The chapel seemed to tilt. Claire lifted the mask. The air hit her skin like ice and like summer, like a memory and like prophecy. Pain crested, high and bright. It did not kill her. It did not break her. It simply told the truth about what had already happened and what had been survived. Mireya closed her eyes, ecstasy soft, as if listening to a hymn that had finally reached its chorus. Ah, she said, breath fogging.
There it is.
William did not move. Slowly, so slowly she would later remember it in slices. Claire lowered the mask to her chest and opened her eyes to the world she had been avoiding for 10 years. The scars were not neat. Curses never are. They mapped her cheek and temple in raised, shining lines, like rivers where the gods had once dragged their fingers through wet clay. Some were pale, some dark. Some had the puckered look of old burns, some the smoothness of skin that had forgotten it was supposed to be flesh. They did not make her less. They made a story visible. William's face altered as if someone had lifted one of his ribs and made space where there had been none. No flinch, no pity. Recognition, clean and absolute, hit him like a bell.
Claire.
He said, nothing fancy about it.
Hello?
Mireya laughed, delighted, as if she had been paid in full. And there,
She purred.
is my coin.
She picked up her lantern, tipped an imaginary hat to the two of them, and began to back away.
Keep it, pretty wolf. The face, I mean. You'll need it for what comes.
What comes?
William asked, too sharp.
Oh, Alpha.
The witch's smile showed every one of her small, white teeth.
The boy who sold the first piece of her is a man now. Men bury their bargains badly. The ground is already stirring. I will see you again when the roots push through.
The door closed on her, and the chapel exhaled. Claire stood as if her bones had to relearn their own weight. William didn't touch her. He stood within reach and waited. He was very good at waiting when it counted. After a time measured in heartbeats and not in clocks, Claire drew breath that wasn't a flinch. She looked at him fully, scars bared, and for the first time in a long time, her voice sounded like it belonged to her.
Hello.
She said back. He smiled, small, real.
May I walk you out?
Yes.
She said, surprising them both. They stepped into morning as if it were a newly discovered room. Somewhere on the north wall, a horn sounded twice, guards changing shifts, a normal thing. Somewhere below, the kitchen began to stir. Life, rude and insistent, resumed. The mask hung from Claire's hand like a moon caught on a string. Far out on the cliff road, where the snow didn't quite know if it wanted to melt, Mireia lifted her face to the pale sun and grinned like a girl who had stolen apples. Winter was almost done. Roots were waking. And deep in the old wood, where men pretend not to hear what trees remember, something else opened its eyes. Chapter 3, The Roots Beneath. Most wars do not begin with horns or banners. They begin with whispers that find the cracks in silence and grow like vines. The first whisper came 3 nights after Mireia left the chapel. Claire was in the ledger room again, sorting records by candlelight, when the flame trembled though there was no wind. She thought it was her hand until she saw the ink quiver in the inkwell, as if something deep in the stone below the keep had shifted. She pressed her palm to the floor. The scarred skin of her cheek prickled, alive with a memory she hadn't chosen. She remembered being 12, remembered the boy's hand leaving hers, remembered the witch's smile. She remembered the first night she wore the mask and how the earth outside had seemed to sigh with relief. Now the earth was sighing again.
The roots are waking,
she thought, though she had no idea what that meant. When she rose to fetch water, the steward was waiting in the corridor. His eyes were rimmed with sleeplessness.
The Alpha wants you,
he said, his tone too flat to argue with.
now.
Claire followed, the mask still clutched in her hand, though she had not worn it since the chapel. It had become an object, not a shield, yet she could not bear to let it go. The Alpha was in the war chamber. Maps lay open like wounds on the long table, stones weighing them flat. William's palms pressed against the wood. His eyes lifted when she entered, not with command, but with the acknowledgement one gives an equal.
You felt it too?
He asked. She hesitated.
the ink moved.
His mouth tightened, but not at her.
The patrols reported the same. Trees leaning where no wind blew, roots breaking through the frozen ground. Something is stirring under us, and it isn't natural.
The councilmen around the table shifted uneasily. Some crossed themselves, others muttered about omens. William silenced them with a glance.
The witch said the ground would stir.
Claire said, quieter than she meant.
And you believe her?
One of the elders scoffed.
A woman who collects curses like a merchant collects coins?
Claire looked at him with eyes that had long since learned to read cruelty.
She was not lying.
The room stilled. Even the fire seemed to lean closer to listen. William's gaze stayed on her.
Then we prepare.
That night, she dreamed of roots. They twisted beneath her bed like serpents, cracking stone, wrapping around her ankles. They pulled, and she fell, not into soil, but into memory. The boy stood there again, fair, earnest, with eyes that had once been full of promises. He was older now, his face sharpened by choices made too quickly. Behind him, Mireya smiled, holding a lantern full of faces that flickered like trapped moths.
You gave me away.
Claire said in the dream, though her lips did not move. The boy looked at her with shame so heavy it bent his shoulders.
I thought it would save you.
And it did?
She asked, bitter as ash. He reached out as if to touch her. The scars on her cheek blazed hotter. She woke with a cry strangled in her throat. Morning found her in the Eastern Chapel again. She did not remember walking there. She only knew that the colored light fell over her scars as if the glass had been waiting to paint them. William entered quietly, his cloak dusted with snow. He did not ask permission to sit beside her. He simply did, as if she had left the space open for him.
You've seen him,
he said. Not a question. Claire closed her eyes. Yes.
Who is he?
She swallowed.
The one who sold me, the boy I once loved.
The alpha's jaw tightened. He said nothing for a long while, only let the silence stretch until it became less of a noose and more of a net that caught her breath.
He will come back,
William said finally.
The witch promised as much.
Claire's hands curled in her lap.
And if he does?
William looked at her, steady as stone, fierce as the river under ice.
Then he will learn what it means to sell what was never his to give.
The wind outside shifted. Snow fell from the eaves in a sudden cascade, like the mountain itself had exhaled. Claire felt it again, the bond she had spent a decade denying, now pressing close, alive, insistent. William's nearness was a storm she could not escape, but for the first time, she did not want to. And still, beneath it all, she heard the roots whispering.
Not yet,
They said.
not yet, but soon.
Chapter 4. The Boy Who Sold. The boy had not been a boy for a long time. His name was Elias now, though once she had whispered it softer, made it sound like something worth keeping. 10 years had carved lines into his face, but not into his pride. That had grown sharper, honed by bargains and betrayals he called survival. When he rode into the valley below Grayfang Keep, the snow did not cling to him. Men like Elias always carried their own weather. Behind him trailed half a dozen riders, cloaked in furs that bore no crest, blades at their sides polished too often to be ceremonial. Their horses' hooves struck the frozen road like drum beats announcing war. From the high wall, Claire watched unseen. She had no mask now, only the cold air on her scars. The sight of him opened wounds she had thought were already scar. He was taller, broader, but his eyes, those were the same. Too bright, too eager to prove themselves right, even when wrong.
He looks like a man who knows where to hurt,
William said beside her. His voice was steady, but the wolf in it stirred.
Is he the one?
Claire's throat tightened.
Yes.
Then he won't cross that gate.
But Elias did not ride to the gate. He dismounted at the frozen riverbank and let his men set a camp in plain sight, as if daring the keep to notice. He lit no fire. He wanted to be seen waiting. That night, the whisper of roots grew louder. The stones of the keep groaned as if something pressed upward beneath them. Claire dreamed again, this time not of Elias, but of herself at 12. She saw her younger hands cupping a small bird with a broken wing. She remembered how she had promised to care for it, and how, when the boy offered to help, she had trusted him with it. The bird was gone by morning. She woke with her heart racing and understood. She had been the bird. William summoned her to the war chamber again at dawn. The map of the valley lay spread with fresh marks showing Elias's camp. The councilman argued, strike first, hold the walls, send a parley. William listened, but his eyes kept returning to her. When the chamber emptied, he spoke low.
If you don't want to face him, I'll see to it you never have to.
Claire shook her head.
Running is what he gave me. I won't give it back.
William's hand hovered near hers on the table, not touching, just close enough to feel the heat.
Then we face him together.
That evening, under a bruised sky, Elias came to the gate alone. He carried no weapon. He did not need one. Words had always been sharper in his mouth than steel. The guards let him pass under William's watch. The courtyard was quiet, every window watching. Claire stood at the far side, maskless, her scars bared to torchlight. Elias saw her and stopped, a flicker of surprise breaking through his composure.
You kept it.
He said, as if they were speaking of something trivial, as if the mask were an heirloom and not her prison.
I carried what you sold.
She answered, voice steady despite the burn in her chest. His gaze slid to William, measuring.
And now you found protection. How convenient.
William's wolf surged, but he held it in.
Speak what you came to say.
He told Elias. Elias's smile was sharp.
I came to collect what is mine.
The courtyard air froze. Claire's scars pulsed like embers. Mireya's words echoed. The boy who sold the first piece of her is a man now. Men bury their bargains badly.
You sold me.
Claire said, the words cutting her throat raw.
You don't get to call me yours.
Elias stepped forward, and for the first time in years, she saw him clearly. Not the boy she had once loved, but the man who had learned that betrayal could be currency. His hand lifted, palm out, fingers curling like he meant to close them around something invisible. The ground trembled. Roots pushed through the flagstones at his feet, splitting them with a groan. William moved before the guards could. The wolf in him answered with a growl that rattled the iron hinges of the gate.
Touch her,
He said, voice a low storm.
and you'll never speak again.
The roots stilled, quivering like snakes under command. Elias's eyes flicked between them, scarred girl, watchful alpha, and his smile changed. Not warm, not mocking, hungry.
This isn't over.
He said softly, and the roots sank back into the earth. He turned and walked from the courtyard as if he had won something only he understood. Claire's knees threatened to give, but William's hand steadied her, not with force, but with quiet certainty.
It's beginning.
She whispered. And in the distance, as Elias's campfires finally lit against the dark, the roots stirred again, hungry and waiting. Chapter 5. The Bargain's Shadow. The keep did not sleep that night. Torches burned along the walls until dawn, and every wolf in Grayfang territory howled as if some chord had been struck beneath the earth. Claire sat in the chapel with the mask in her lap, tracing the ruined stitches where the ash thread runes had begun to fray. They had been her prison, her shield, her silence. Now they were failing, and she did not know whether that was freedom or doom. William entered without sound, though she felt him before she saw him. His presence filled the air the way thunderheads fill a sky, not yet breaking, but inevitable. He did not sit at first. He stood beside her and looked at the mask, his jaw tightening.
You don't need that anymore.
He said. Claire's thumb pressed harder against the seam.
Don't I?
You carried it because you were forced, not because you were meant to.
His gaze softened, though the wolf still stirred beneath it.
And now the one who forced it on you is here.
She lifted her eyes to him, weary.
What if facing him breaks me more than the mask ever did?
William's reply was quiet, but iron strong.
Then I'll break with you, but I won't let him take another piece.
Outside, the bell tolled once. A rider had come at dawn. By the time Claire and William reached the gatehouse, the messenger stood in the snow, shivering in armor too thin for the cold. He bore Elias's seal, pressed into dark wax. William took the parchment, read it, and his mouth went grim. He handed it to Claire without a word. At dusk, send her to me, alone. The roots will rise if you refuse. Claire's scars flared hot. She felt the ground beneath her shift faintly, as if agreeing with the words. The council clamored, voices crashing in the war chamber. Some urged to hand her over, others to strike first, a few to pray. William let them shout until the air thickened, then silenced them with one word.
Enough.
His eyes found Claire's across the table.
What do you want?
The room went still. No one had asked her that in 10 years. Her lips parted. The truth came raw.
I want to end it.
Later, when they stood alone, William spoke low.
He'll use the roots. He'll use whatever bargain he struck with the witch. But he won't use you unless you let him. And I won't allow it.
Her voice shook.
You can't command a curse.
No,
William said, stepping closer.
but I can stand between you and the man who thinks he owns it.
At dusk, the gates opened. Claire walked out first, the mask hanging from her hand like a severed lie. William shadowed her, flanked by his guard, though his presence was enough to eclipse them all. Elias waited by the frozen river. His men stood back, their faces unreadable in the torchlight. The ground beneath his boots was already split, roots coiling through cracks like restless serpents.
You came.
Elias said, his voice too smooth. His eyes slid to the mask.
But not as I remember you.
Claire lifted her chin.
That girl died the night you sold her.
Elias's smile faltered.
You think I sold you. Number I traded. For both of us. Safety, power, a future.
You traded my face at
She hissed.
my life.
You were weak.
He said simply.
The witch offered strength. Someone had to choose.
William's growl carried across the snow.
You chose wrong.
Elias's eyes flicked to him, hungry and cold.
And you, Alpha, think you can undo bargains made in blood? You can't. She's bound to me as surely as to you. 1 scar for 1 oath, 10 winters, 10 roots, and now the ground will rise for me.
He slammed his palm to the frozen soil. The earth cracked like glass. Roots surged upward, thick as serpents, clawing at air, at stone, at the space between Claire and William. But William stepped forward, his wolf breaking through like a storm-given flesh. His eyes burned silver, his voice a command older than curses.
Not hers.
He snarled.
Never hers again.
The roots recoiled as if struck. Elias staggered, rage flashing across his face.
You can't sever what I bound?
Claire's scars blazed so hot she thought her skin would split. But instead of pain, something else came. Clarity. The bond between her and William, pressed for 10 years behind ash-thread lies, flared open. The roots wavered. She stepped forward, voice cutting through the howl of wind and wood.
You didn't bind me, Elias. You abandoned me. And that curse? It isn't yours anymore.
The roots froze mid-lash, trembling between them. For the first time, Elias looked afraid. The earth had chosen. Chapter 6, The Breaking of Roots. The night shuddered as if the valley itself were breathing. Roots strained against stone, thick cords of earth tearing upward, splitting the frozen ground into jagged scars. Snow slid from the ramparts of the keep, hissing into darkness. Claire stood between William and Elias, her breath frosting in the cold, her scars glowing faintly as if they had been written in fire. The bond inside her, the one she had smothered beneath silk and thread, beat against her ribs like a caged heart demanding to be free. Elias extended his hand, palm up, the way he had when they were children.
Claire,
He said, voice breaking on her name.
it doesn't matter what you think of me. The roots are ours. They answer the bargain. Step forward and you'll feel it. You'll remember.
She did remember, but not what he wanted her to. She remembered the ache of betrayal, the moment his hand slipped from hers, the silence of the witch's lantern when her face was sealed away. That silence was not strength. It was theft. William's wolf growled low beside her, the sound reverberating through the bones of the keep. His eyes burned silver, fixed on Elias like a blade honed on rage.
She remembers enough. You will not touch her again.
Elias sneered, though his jaw was tight.
And you think you can sever blood debt with nothing but a glare?
He pressed his hand harder into the ground. The roots writhed and lashed upward, striking for Claire's legs like a tide of serpents. She did not flinch. For the first time in 10 years, she did not hide. The scars burned hotter, her body thrumming with power she hadn't known was hers. She lifted her chin and whispered a word. One word she had not spoken since the curse was laid.
No.
The roots hesitated. The word rippled through the earth like water over glass. Elias's face twisted.
Don't fight me, you can't. I made the bargain.
Claire's voice rang sharper, steadier.
You sold me, Elias, and I never agreed.
The ground shook harder, the roots splitting into two currents, half straining toward Elias, half toward her. The bond of the curse was unraveling, searching for a master. William stepped closer, his presence filling the fracture. His hand brushed her arm, not commanding, not binding, simply there, steady as stone.
Choose, Claire.
He said.
Not him. Not me. You. Choose what's yours.
Her pulse thundered. The mask in her hand dropped to the snow, forgotten. She closed her eyes and reached inward, past fear, past betrayal, into the quiet she'd learned to live in. The scars blazed white. The roots froze mid-air, quivering, then began to sink back into the ground, their thrashing turning to tremors, then to silence. The soil knitted itself closed over them like a wound. When Claire opened her eyes, the night was still. The power that had lived in her scars dimmed, but it was not gone. It was hers. Elias staggered back, face pale, eyes wide with fury.
You can't.
But he stopped, because he saw it too. The bargain was broken. Claire's voice was soft, but it cut through him.
You never owned me. Not then, not now, not ever.
For the first time since he had returned, Elias looked small. He spat into the snow, his pride a cracked shell.
This isn't the end.
He snarled. Then he turned, retreating to the riverbank where his men waited, their torches trembling in the dark. The gates closed behind him. Silence fell heavy over the courtyard. Claire swayed, the release of 10 winters leaving her knees weak. William caught her, steadying her against his chest. His warmth was solid, his breath steady at her temple.
You ended it.
He murmured. She shook her head faintly, her voice breaking.
No, I began it.
Above them, the moon broke through the clouds, silver light pouring over her scars. They no longer looked like wounds. They looked like marks of survival, carved deep, undeniable. And though Elias had fled, the earth still remembered. Far beneath the keep, where roots tangled in ancient dark, something older than bargains stirred awake. Not broken, not yet, only waiting. Chapter 7. The Witch's Return. The keep celebrated nothing that night. No feasts, no songs. The people had seen roots split stone and sky. They knew the ground was restless. Fear tastes sharper than wine, and it lingered in every hall. Claire lay awake in her narrow chamber, the mask discarded on the table, its silk edges frayed and useless. She traced her scars with her fingertips, feeling the hum that had never been there before. The curse no longer burned like chains. It pulsed like something alive, hers, not Elias's. But power does not shift without consequence. She drifted near dawn, dreaming of lantern light. Mireya stood before her again, bone mask gleaming.
Clever girl.
the witch purred.
You cut the rope. You spoke the word. And now the power is yours.
Claire's dream self whispered,
It feels like fire.
All power does.
Mireya said.
The trick is learning which parts of you to burn away and which to keep.
When Claire woke, smoke really was in the air. Not fire, but incense. She followed the scent through cold corridors to the eastern chapel. The door stood open, lantern light spilling out. Mireya was waiting. William stood at the threshold already, shoulders squared, the wolf close to the surface.
You weren't invited.
He said. Mireya smiled, teeth sharp behind the mask.
And yet here I am. You should know by now. Bargains have long shadows.
Claire's stomach tightened.
What do you want?
The witch turned to her with mock affection.
What I always wanted, to collect, not from him.
She jerked her chin toward Elias's abandoned camp visible beyond the chapel window.
From you.
William's voice was low thunder.
She owes you nothing.
On the contrary,
Mireya said sweetly.
she owes me choice. I gave her the mask, and she wore it well. She broke it herself, yes, but breaking does not erase the debt. It only transforms it.
The mask on Claire's table had frayed where the runes once glowed. Mireya lifted it now from beneath her cloak, whole again, gleaming, as if the years had never touched it. Claire's breath caught. How?
I do not craft masks,
Mireya said.
I craft prisons. And prisons, well, they always want to be filled again.
William stepped closer to Claire, hand brushing hers.
You won't take her.
But Mireya wasn't looking at William. She was looking at Claire's scars, glowing faintly in the morning light.
I don't want her face. I want her fire. 10 years of silence, 10 years of hiding, 10 years of strength gathered drop by drop. Do you know what that is worth in my lantern?
Claire's skin prickled. The dream returned, the witch's lantern full of faces, fluttering like trapped moths. Mireya tilted her head.
Give me 1 night of your power, girl. 1 night, and I will leave your valley untouched. Refuse, and the roots will wake again. This time hungrier.
The air thickened. The chapel stones groaned faintly, as if listening. Claire's hands clenched. For the first time, she did not feel small before Mireya. Her scars thrummed, a rhythm steady and defiant. She had broken the mask once. She could break it again. Her voice was steady when she answered.
I've paid enough.
Mireya's eyes narrowed behind the bone mask. The lantern at her side flickered, moth faces pressing against its glass.
So be it,
she said, and the flame inside roared higher.
Then I'll take what you won't give.
The ground shivered. Roots stirred again, splitting stone in the chapel's floor. William's wolf bared its teeth, and Claire, scars blazing like silver fire, stepped forward to meet the witch who had stolen her face. Chapter 8. Fire in the Lantern. The chapel shook as if it were breathing with something older than stone. Roots cracked the flagstones, coiling around pews, snaking toward the altar where Mireya stood with her lantern. The glass flickered with faces, faint outlines, moth-like and desperate. Claire's stomach turned. How many souls had been caged in that light before hers was nearly taken? William's growl rolled low, more beast than man now. His eyes gleamed silver, every muscle taut. But he did not strike first. His restraint was for her, for the girl with scars who had to choose her own weapon. Mireya lifted the lantern higher. The flame inside flared, licking against the glass, and a dozen whispers filled the air.
1 night, Claire,
The witch crooned.
1 night of your fire, and I will leave this valley in peace. Think of the people who will suffer if you refuse.
Claire's scars burned, answering the lantern's pull. She could feel the witch tugging on her silence, her suffering, the power she had gathered in 10 winters of hiding. A thread of herself wavered toward the glass. She clutched her arms tight.
No more cages.
She said. Her voice trembled, but the words rang like iron. Mireya's smile sharpened.
Then I will take what you will not give.
She twisted the lantern, and the roots surged higher, striking for Claire like 100 hungry serpents. William leapt between them, claws flashing as his wolf broke free. He tore through the first roots, shredding them to mulch, but more came, rising faster, binding his legs. His howl shook the chapel rafters, but even his strength could not hold them all.
Claire,
He roared.
it's your fire she wants, not mine. Burn it.
Her chest heaved. For 10 years, she had smothered the blaze in her scars, fearing it, hiding it, binding it beneath silk and ash. But now the curse hummed like a living thing, waiting. She dropped to her knees, palms against the stone, and closed her eyes. She thought of the mask. She thought of Elias's betrayal. She thought of every night she swallowed her voice because she was afraid of being seen. And then she thought of William's hand, steady against hers, his voice saying, "Choose, Claire. Not him, not me, you." Her scars blazed white-hot. Heat surged through her veins. She opened her eyes, and fire poured from them. Silver fire, not the witch's, not Elias's, but hers. The roots screamed as they burned, blackening, curling back into the earth. Mireya staggered, the lantern rattling in her grip. Faces inside shrieked as Claire's power washed over them, and one by one, the glass cracked.
Stop!
Mireya screeched.
You'll shatter it!
Good.
Claire whispered. The lantern exploded in her hands. A storm of light burst through the chapel, moth faces dissolving into air, whispers turning to cries of freedom. Mireya fell back against the altar, her bone mass cracking down the center. Smoke stung the air. Roots withdrew, hissing into the ground. The chapel was silent again, except for the sound of William's breathing, ragged, his wolf retreating under his skin. Claire stood, fire still glowing faintly beneath her scars. She met Mireya's stunned eyes.
You don't own me. You never did.
The witch's grin returned, faint but sly, even through the fracture of her mask.
Perhaps not.
She rasped.
But do you know what you've done, child? You've loosed more than you realize. Some debts are never meant to be paid.
Before William could strike, Mireya dissolved into smoke, vanishing into the cracks of the chapel stones. Claire's knees buckled. William caught her, pulling her close, his chest still heaving with the remnants of the wolf.
You burned her hold.
He said, fierce and proud.
You ended it.
But Claire shook her head against him, her voice faint.
Number I broke something older. I felt it. The roots, they're still alive, and now they're free.
William's eyes darkened.
Then we'll face them. Together.
Outside, the valley wind howled. Beneath the earth, the roots stirred, no longer bound to Mireya's lantern, no longer chained by bargains. For the first time in centuries, they moved of their own will, and they were hungry. Chapter 9. The Hunger Beneath. Snow fell in restless spirals, as though the sky itself sensed unease. From the high walls of Grayfang Keep, the valley stretched pale and still, but beneath the surface, the earth quivered with secret life. Roots bulged under frozen soil like veins under skin, pressing upward, searching. Claire stood on the battlements with the wind in her hair, scars warm against the night air. She had thought the fire would fade once Mireya's lantern shattered, but it lingered, pulsing with every heartbeat. It felt less like a curse now and more like a tether, tying her to something vast, something restless below. William joined her, his cloak snapping in the wind. His presence was an anchor, steady, unyielding. He studied the shifting ground far below.
It's not waiting for the witch anymore.
He said.
It's moving on its own.
Claire nodded, throat tight.
I freed it.
You freed yourself.
William corrected. His gaze shifted to her scars.
Whatever lives beneath was never yours to carry. It was buried before either of us were born.
She wanted to believe him. But when the roots stirred, she felt them in her blood. She wondered if the curse had carved a doorway in her, and if that doorway had swung wide when she burned the lantern. The alarm bell tolled once, low and urgent. A scout came running along the wall.
My lord, the riverbank has cracked. The trees along it fell as though pulled under.
William's jaw clenched.
Gather the patrols. Hold the line until dawn.
The scout bowed and fled. William turned to Claire.
Stay inside the keep.
No.
The word left her before she could weigh it. She met his eyes steady.
This fire, it answers to me. If I hide, it will only grow hungrier. I need to face it.
His wolf flared in his gaze, protective, furious, but he didn't argue. Instead, he stepped close, his hand brushing hers.
Then I won't let you face it alone.
That night, they went to the riverbank. The ground there was split wide, frozen soil gaping like a wound. Water churned dark and wild, pulled by roots that coiled up from the depths, glistening with frost. They were massive now, thicker than tree trunks, their bark veined with faint light. The moment Claire stepped near, the roots shifted, bending toward her like hounds scenting blood. Her scars flared in answer. William's growl vibrated through the night.
They think you're theirs.
Claire swallowed, her voice low.
Because for 10 years I was.
The largest root lunged, crashing against the riverbank, spraying ice and mud. William leapt forward, claws gleaming as his wolf burst through. He ripped into it, tearing bark and sinew, but more came, thrashing, twisting around him, pulling.
Claire!
He roared, fighting to keep his footing. Her fire surged, spilling from her scars in white flame. She raised her hands, and the blaze leapt from her palms, striking the roots. They shrieked, an unearthly sound, wood splitting like bone. The flames spread along them, silver white, forcing them back into the river. The water hissed, steam rose, curling around her like a crown. William broke free, chest heaving, blood streaking his arm where bark had torn him. He turned, eyes burning.
You did it.
But Claire shook her head, fire still coursing in her veins.
Number, this isn't the end. They weren't attacking. They were reaching.
Reaching for what?
She looked at the water, at the dark hole yawning beneath the current where the roots had come. The fire inside her pulsed like an answer.
For me,
She whispered. The river roared louder, as if it had heard her, and from its depths, something vast began to rise. Chapter 10. The Rising. The river split open. Water frothed and surged as something older than time pushed through. Not just roots now, an entire mass of them, braided together, forming a shape too monstrous to belong to either plant or beast. Its crown of twisted branches rose high, dripping river ice, and when it moved, the ground trembled like a struck drum. Claire staggered back, the fire in her scars flaring until her skin glowed white. The tether inside her pulled taut. She felt it dragging her forward, as though the creature were not rising for itself, but for her. William's wolf stood bristling at her side, silver eyes ablaze. His voice was rough stone breaking.
It wants you.
She nodded, fear threading her ribs.
Because it thinks I belong to it.
The creature's face was a hollow knot of bark, roots for teeth, a darkness within that whispered like wind through graves. Its voice came without words, a roar inside her mind. Return. Complete. Burn. Claire shook, but she lifted her chin.
I am not yours.
The fire in her scars surged higher, wrapping her in silver light. She stepped forward. Each stride burned. William reached for her arm, but she looked back, eyes steady through the blaze.
If I don't end this, it will never stop. Let me finish it.
His jaw tightened. The wolf in him fought to drag her back, but the man in him, the alpha, nodded once.
Then end it, and know I'll follow wherever you go.
She turned back to the river. The monstrous root creature leaned closer, shadow swallowing the banks. Its roots lashed, reaching for her. She raised her hands, fire spilling between her fingers.
No more masks.
She said, her voice trembling with fire and truth.
No more cages, no more bargains. I am Claire.
Her power burst outward. The fire from her scars consumed her whole body, not as destruction, but as revelation. It poured into the roots, flooding the hollow face, setting every twisted sinew alight. The creature screamed, not in rage, but in release. Flames raced down its limbs into the river, into the soil, until the valley itself shone with silver fire. The tether snapped. The creature collapsed in on itself, breaking apart into ash and embers that scattered into the night sky. The roots withdrew, no longer snarling, no longer bound, just gone. Claire fell to her knees, her fire dimming to embers. William caught her before she touched the ground, pulling her into his arms, holding her like she was something the earth had finally surrendered.
It's over,
He whispered, his voice breaking. And for the first time in 10 years, Claire believed it. Chapter 11, The Dawn. The valley slept in silence. No tremors, no whispers, just the soft crackle of ash settling where the river had run wild. The people of Grayfang emerged from their homes at sunrise, their faces lifted to the sky as if tasting peace for the first time. Claire stood on the walls of the keep beside William, the wind carrying the faint smell of smoke. Her scars were still there, but they no longer burned. They glowed faintly in the sun, not wounds, not shame, marks of survival.
You look different.
William said quietly, studying her. She touched her cheek.
I feel different.
He tilted his head. Stronger. She smiled, small, tired, but real. Free. Below them, the villagers gathered, voices rising in thanks, in awe, in relief. But Claire didn't listen to them. She listened to the quiet in her own chest, the silence that was no longer empty. For the first time since the mask, it was her silence, not the witches, not Elias's, not the roots. Heron's William's hand found hers, warm and sure. Stay, he said softly. Not a command, not a demand, an invitation. She looked at him, at the alpha who had seen past the mask, who had stood beside her when the fire threatened to consume everything. She squeezed his hand.
I will.
And as the sun broke over the mountains, spilling light across the valley, Claire knew that her story, scarred, cursed, and burning, had finally come to its end. Spring came to the valley as if it were apologizing. Snow retreated in shy ribbons along the ridge. The river remembered its song, and the pines let go of winter with a long, whispering breath. Grayfang Keep changed, too, the way a face softens when it no longer has to hide what it's endured. Windows opened to air. Laughter returned to the training yard. Even the old stones seemed to sit easier on their foundations. Claire learned the new season in small ways. Children stopped staring and started waving. They would run ahead of their mothers to the market and then forget, halfway there, that they'd ever been afraid. Once, a girl with a gap-toothed smile stood on tiptoe and asked very solemnly,
Did your face catch the moon?
No,
Claire answered, equally solemn.
the moon caught me. I just didn't let it keep me.
The girl thought about that and nodded, content with the math of it. Women, some younger than Claire, some old enough to remember 3 alphas back, touched her sleeve not to tug her along, but to steady themselves. A weaver held out a length of cloth, dyed the soft gray of dawn, and said,
For a shawl.
Claire took it and, for once, did not argue about gifts. Old habits of refusal loosened like frost under sun. Men bowed less deeply and looked less hard. They had expected spectacle when the mask came off. Horror they could pity or beauty they could worship. They found neither. They found a woman with a map written on her skin and a steadier gait than most of them had earned. Some mornings, Claire woke and reached for the ties at the back of her head before she remembered there were none. The memory shamed her for a beat, then stopped doing even that. Muscle memory takes time to unteach. She let it. She let herself be a person who had once been something else. The body forgives you in stages. William made forgiveness easier. He never pretended he hadn't noticed the change. He simply refused to make a shrine of it. He visited the apothecary where Claire had started helping the herb wives sort spring roots from winter's leftovers and asked what needed carrying. He stood at the far end of the kennels while she coaxed a skittish wolfhound to accept a new collar and did not insert his authority into the space. He read ledgers with her in the afternoons when the light was good and made soft, disgruntled sounds at badly kept accounts that made her laugh. Power was always near him, the way warmth is near a flame. But with her, he banked it, letting it heat the room without scorching it. When he trained, he sent for her only if he bled. He bled a little on purpose more often than was strictly necessary, though even he might not have admitted that to himself. She would take his forearm in both hands and clean the shallow cut that a young wolf had landed, and he would watch her face with the concentration of a man memorizing a language. If she flinched when his skin touched hers, he moved away first. If she didn't, he stayed.
You should ask the moon to bless what you've done.
An elder told him once, half in jest, half not.
I did.
William said, watching Claire cross the courtyard with an armful of willow bark.
It sent Claire.
The word Luna began to move through the keep, the way spring water finds old channels. No proclamation, no choreographed ceremony. William didn't name her. The people did. A baker said it first, simply when her husband came home from the riverbank with news about the Alpha's visits to the chapel.
Our Luna,
She said, dusting flour off her hands as if that settled it. The name stuck because it fit. Claire didn't hide from the word. She tried it on in the privacy of her room, where the old mask lay at the bottom of a cedar chest, its silk softened by disuse. Luna. Not a crown, not a collar, a roll, a promise. If she wore it, she would do so the way she wore her scars, openly. One evening, after a day spent helping the herb wives grind willow into powder and reading a long, smug letter from a neighboring lord who had never been told the difference between advice and interference, Claire carried a bundle to the Eastern Chapel. The glass poured color over everything the light touched. Even the shadowed corners looked less mean. She was not surprised to find William there, not praying, just breathing, hands on the back of the last pew as if steadying himself on purpose. He turned at the sound of her boots.
You always find the quiet places first.
It's the noisy ones I don't trust.
She said, setting the bundle on the bench.
Noisy rooms hide sharper knives.
He huffed something like a laugh and came to stand a few paces away.
I have something for you.
You keep saying that lately.
She said, teasing.
A man could be accused of trying to court me.
Could he?
The corner of his mouth tilted. Then the tilt faded, replaced by that raw, careful honesty she had learned to meet without armor. He opened the small leather case in his hands and held up what lay inside, a thin band, hammered silver, coiled over itself once like a river doubling back. There was no jewel, only a small rune etched within, a protective script the pack used for fire, steadying, not quenching. Claire reached toward it, then stopped, fingers hovering.
Is it a binding?
No.
He shook his head, making the word gentler than a refusal.
Bindings make small what they claim. This is a promise made visible.
His eyes flicked to her face.
If you want it.
What does it promise?
She asked.
That I will never ask you to be smaller than you are.
He said.
That if the past rises, it will find me between it and you. Not because you are weak, but because you shouldn't have to fight alone. That the door in you you've kept closed out of fear will only open because you open it, not because I push.
He never said love as a flourish. He said the labor of it. Claire swallowed, the chapel air suddenly thick.
And what do you ask in return?
That you tell me the truth when you are afraid,
he said,
so I don't mistake your silence for consent. That you let me be a man who can be wrong and be corrected. That you call me William when everyone else calls me Alpha, so I remember I am a person before a title.
She let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding.
That I can do.
He hesitated.
And one more thing.
Ask it.
Stay,
he said, and the word nearly undid him because he made it without a net.
Stay
as Luna. Stay as my mate. Stay because you choose me when the room is empty and there's no one watching to applaud. She studied him the way she had once studied a ledger she wasn't sure she'd balance. Then she reached into the leather case and lifted the coil of silver. It was cool against her palm, not heavy. She took his hand and turned it outward and pressed the band into his skin.
Put it on me,
she said, trembling and steady, both truths at once.
Then put yours on, because this is not me coming to live inside your life. This is us making a new one between us.
He slid the band over her ring finger, the silver warming as if it had been waiting for skin. He brought her hand to his mouth and kissed the pulse. When he straightened, his eyes were wet in a way she knew he would not show to anyone else. He took the second band from the case and offered it without ceremony. She slid it over his finger, slow. He didn't hide his shiver. For a long breath they just stood there, the bands catching colored light, the rune glinting and then going quiet.
Walk with me,
he said, voice rough. They left the chapel by the side door and took the path that wound beneath the south wall, where the first wildflowers dared the cold. It wasn't yet warm enough to be comfortable, but they went anyway, hands brushing, then linking. The moon came up thin and bright. The stars looked close enough to bother with.
Tell me what you would do as Luna,
William said after a while, not testing her, inviting her to begin.
I would rebuild the herb house with better light,
she said, immediate, like something she'd been hiding in her throat in case it was too big for daylight.
I'd train girls who want steadier hands than mine to take it over when I'm old.
She looked sideways at him.
I would make a reading room for the keep, with a locked shelf for letters from men who think their land entitles them to the courtesy of being believed. I would move those letters there and ignore them until their patience learns to knock.
He smiled into the dark.
I'll help you carry the shelf.
She squeezed his hand and quietly.
I would make a place for people who are not finished being afraid, a place where no one demands their fear be pretty.
His hand tightened in answer.
That I want,
he said.
That I need.
They reached the old oak that sat awkward on the edge of the training field, roots like the backs of sleeping animals. It had survived storms that had toppled trees twice its age. A scar ran down its trunk where lightning had tried to split it and failed.
Here,
William said, touching the bark.
Bury it here.
Claire had brought the silk mask in the bundle, folded small. She hadn't decided what to do with it until this moment. Fire felt wrong. It would have looked like rage when what she felt was completion. Keeping it in a chest kept it near in a way she didn't want. The oak offered something better. Not forgetting, not display, absorption. William dug with his hands until the soil gave. Claire laid the mask in the shallow earth and pressed it down herself. She smoothed the dirt over it and leaned her forehead to the bark, closing her eyes. There was no prayer, only gratitude without a name. When she straightened, William had stepped back to give her the first look at the empty space in her hands. She looked, and something inside her uncoiled. She laughed then, short, surprised, delighted. The laugh of a woman who had just discovered a pocket in a dress she'd worn for years.
What?
He asked, startled into a grin.
I thought it would feel like a wound.
She said, opening and closing her fingers.
It feels like a hand I forgot was mine.
He lifted that hand and kissed the knuckles, one by one. He kissed the place where the ties had once bitten the nape of her neck. He kissed the highest edge of the scar along her cheek, reverently, as if honoring a boundary and placing his promise at its edge.
Dance with me,
She said, sudden, asking something she'd wanted since the night of the feast when she carried trays and pretended not to notice him not drinking.
Here?
His brows went up.
Here.
She stepped back and held out both hands, palms up. It wasn't a dance anyone had taught her. It was the kind of swaying people do when there's no music and no witnesses. He laughed, put his big, capable hands in hers, and let her set the pace. They moved in a small circle under the oak, the ground uneven, the stars not caring, the moon cutting their shadows into cleaner versions of themselves.
Tell me the first moment.
She said into his shoulder.
Not the polite answer, the truth.
The first moment I saw you?
He asked. When she nodded against him, he didn't make it grand.
In the courtyard.
He said.
When the kitchen maid stepped in front of you and I lost sight of you. I felt the loss like a memory I hadn't made yet. It was infuriating.
He laughed at himself low.
Then it was terrifying. Then it was a direction.
A direction?
Yes.
He pulled back enough to see her.
I have spent my life being where everyone expects an alpha to be. You were a point on a map I didn't know existed until I staggered toward it without grace.
She looked at him the way one looks at a mountain after climbing it, tired and pleased, and a little suspicious of her own luck.
And now?
Now,
he said,
I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
They did not make a spectacle of their vow. When dawn came, they were sitting on the outer steps of the keep, feet on the cold stone, shoulders touching. The guard on the north wall pretended not to see them. The guard on the south wall smiled without looking over. The valley woke. Smoke rose from early fires. Someone sang to a baby badly, and the baby didn't mind. William reached into his cloak and took out a thin strip of leather with a silver thread braided through.
One more thing, he said, self-conscious suddenly, which made Claire love him a little more, because she could see the boy he had been. Once, before leadership had set his bones. Not a mark, not anything that says mine in a way that would make you smaller. A piece of the old banner thread from the hall, the part that never gets seen and never gets praised, but holds the whole thing upright.
She turned, and he tied her hair back with it, fingers careful.
There,
he said.
There,
she echoed. But what she meant was here. News reached the villages the way news always does, faster than facts, kinder than accounts ledgers prefer.
The Alpha asked her,
they said.
She said yes.
And though there would be a feast in time, and a formal blessing, and an old song dragged out and made beautiful again by voices that knew how to carry it, the important thing had already happened on a cold night under an oak that earned its name long ago. In the weeks that followed, Claire moved through the keep as if she had always been expected. She wasn't delicate with her influence. She was particular. She recalibrated the kitchen stores and taught the steward to hide a portion against a winter worse than anyone remembered. She sat on the floor in the reading room and organized letters by degree of danger: wolves, weather, men. And when William asked which piles deserved his teeth first, she pointed to men and did not apologize. When the first storm of spring came, not snow but rain heavy as stone, she and William stood in the doorway and watched the courtyard turn to a shallow lake. The water lapped at the flags that had once split with roots. The stones held. William leaned down and said, because it was time, and because he wanted to say it well,
I love you.
Claire closed her eyes. The words didn't land like arrows. They landed like a roof beam, not crushing, but bearing weight, long meant for it. She turned and put her hands on his face and said,
I love you.
No room for doubt. No room for bargaining with an old fear that looked smaller in this light. They kissed, not because stories demand it, but because they had earned the quiet afterwards together. Later, when the pack gathered, wet, loud, hungry, William lifted his hand, and quiet went through them like the wind through leaves.
This is Claire,
he said. He did not say Luna. He let the people say it, and they did. It rolled forward in a wave that wasn't applause, wasn't worship, recognition. Claire felt it in the soles of her feet. She nodded once, accepting a name that had not been stolen or bought but offered. And the valley, which had watched them more carefully than any person, decided it approved. The river kept to its banks. The old oak stretched with weathered satisfaction. Somewhere, roots moved deep and slow and harmless, the way living things ought to. That night, when the keep finally slept and the last candle was pinched between calloused fingers, Claire and William climbed the stairs to the tower that looked east. They wrapped themselves in the same gray shawl the weaver had pressed into Claire's hands weeks ago. They looked at the dark and did not pretend not to see it. They looked at the light coming and did not pretend it would be easy. They simply made space for both.
Say it again,
Claire whispered, because some words feed you more than once.
I love you,
William said. And each time he said it, it sounded less like a hope and more like a fact the world would have to build around.
Say yours,
he asked back, voice a little rough, and she did, and he breathed like a man who had come home from a long journey he'd been on without knowing he'd left. When the first line of dawn split the mountain, Claire turned her face to it without turning away from him. The light touched her scars and made them shine. She didn't think about hiding. She thought about the day. She thought about making porridge the way the kennel master liked, thick enough to stand a spoon in. She thought about moving those foolish letters to the locked shelf. She thought about taking William to the market and not letting him buy a knife he didn't need. She thought about the reading room filling with girls who would someday teach her things she didn't yet know. She thought about the bands on their fingers and the thread in her hair and the mass sleeping under the oak, and how the word end can mean a boundary or a purpose.
Ready?
William asked.
Always,
she said. The sun broke clean over the ridge. The two of them stood and let it find them.